Commander Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of the Phoenix. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he moved toward the main screen. The view outside showed nothing but dark space and distant stars. But something felt wrong. The air seemed thick and his chest felt tight. "Captain Hayes, we're getting some strange readings," called out Dr. Emma Stone from her station. Her voice had worry in it. She was looking at her computer screen with wide eyes. The numbers on her display were jumping around like crazy. Captain Lisa Hayes turned in her chair. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and sharp blue eyes. She had been in space for 15 years, and she knew when something was not right. "What kind of readings, Emma?" "The gravity sensors are going wild. And the space around us is showing energy levels that shouldn't exist." Dr. Stone's hands moved quickly over her controls. "I've never seen anything like this before." Jake walked over to look at the screen. The numbers meant nothing to him, but he could see they were changing fast. "Too fast? How long have we been getting these readings?" "About 10 minutes. It started right after we entered this area near the Kepler system." Emma looked up at him. "Commander, I think we should leave, now." Chief Engineer Paul Davis spoke, up from his station across the bridge. "Captain, I'm getting power fluctuations in the main engines. Something is messing with our systems." Captain Hayes stood up. She was calm, but Jake could see the concern in her eyes. "Paul, can you get us out of here?" "I'm trying, but the navigation system is acting strange. It's like something is pulling us in a direction we don't want to go." Jake felt his stomach drop. In all his years in space, he had never heard Paul sound worried. The engineer was always confident, always had an answer. If Paul was concerned, then they were in real trouble. "Emma, what exactly are we looking at out there?" Jake asked. Dr. Stone pointed to the main screen. "See that area where the stars look a bit wavy? That's not normal. Space itself is bending. I think we're dealing with some kind of gravitational anomaly." Jake stared at the screen. The stars did look strange, like they were moving in slow motion through water. It was beautiful but frightening at the same time. "Captain," came a voice from behind them. It was Lieutenant Brad Cooper, the communications officer. "I'm losing contact with Earth. The signals are getting weaker." Captain Hayes walked to the center of the bridge. "All hands, this is the captain. We have encountered an unknown space phenomenon. All crew members should remain at their stations and follow standard emergency procedures." Jake watched the crew work. These were good people. The best Earth had to offer. Scientists, engineers, explorers who had volunteered for a 5-year mission to study distant star systems. They had families back home, dreams and plans for the future. He thought of his wife, Helen, waiting for him in their small house outside Houston. She would be getting ready for work about now. "Commander Morrison," Dr. Stone called out. "The readings are getting stronger. Whatever this thing is, we're getting closer to it." "Paul, can you reverse engines?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, but the controls aren't responding the way they should. It's like the ship wants to go forward." Paul's voice was tight with stress. Captain Hayes moved to her command chair. "Emma, I need you to tell me exactly what we're dealing with. It appears to be some kind of space-time distortion. Think of it like a whirlpool in the ocean, but instead of water, it's made of space itself, and we're caught in it." Jake felt the ship shudder. It was a small movement, but he could feel it in his bones. "How big is this thing?" "From what I can tell, it's about the size of a small moon. But it's not solid, it's pure energy, pure distortion." "Can we survive going through it?" Captain Hayes asked. Emma was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. The physics involved are beyond anything we've studied. The gravitational forces should tear us apart, but somehow the ship is holding together." Paul's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, I'm reading hull stress in sections 4 and 7. The ship is being stretched." Jake walked to the communications station. "Brad, send a message to Earth. Tell them what's happening. Include all of Emma's data." "I'm trying, sir, but the signal won't go through. It's like something is blocking it." The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Jake grabbed onto a rail to steady himself. Through the main screen, he could see the stars spinning slowly around them. The distortion was getting stronger. Captain, Emma said, I'm reading massive energy spikes ahead. Whatever is causing this, we're about to reach the center of it. Captain Hayes looked at her crew. These people trusted her to keep them safe. All hands, prepare for unknown conditions. Secure all equipment and personnel. Jake thought about the mission they had started 6 months ago. They were supposed to study 3 star systems, collect data, and return home. Simple exploration, nothing dangerous. But space was full of surprises, and not all of them were good. Energy spike increasing, Emma reported. It's like the distortion is feeding on itself, getting stronger. Paul, what's the status of life support? Jake asked. All systems are functioning, but I'm having to reroute power to compensate for the gravitational effects. We can maintain life support for now. The ship began to spin. Jake watched the stars wheel around them through the main screen. It was not a violent spin, but steady and slow, like they were being pulled into something huge and invisible. Emma, any theories about what could cause this? Captain Hayes asked. In theory, this could be a naturally occurring wormhole. Or it could be artificial. The energy patterns are too regular to be completely natural. Artificial? Jake felt cold. You mean something made this? It's possible. The mathematics suggest an intelligence behind the pattern. Jake looked at the crew around him. They were all working hard, trying to understand and control their situation, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. They had signed up to study distant worlds, not to face the unknown dangers of deep space. Captain, Brad called out. I'm getting some kind of response from the distortion. It's not random energy. There's a pattern to it. What kind of pattern? It's like someone is trying to communicate. The ship shuddered one more time, and then everything went quiet. The normal sounds of the engines and air systems seemed muffled. Jake looked at the main screen and saw that the stars had stopped spinning. They were now moving in a straight line toward the center of the distortion. Emma, what's happening? Captain Hayes asked. We're being pulled in. The gravitational field has us locked in. There's no escape now. Jake felt strangely calm. Whatever was about to happen, they would face it together. He looked at his crew. At these brave people who had followed him into the unknown. They deserve to know the truth. All hands, this is Commander Morrison. We are about to enter an unknown phenomenon. We don't know what will happen, but we will face it as a crew, as a team. Remember your training, trust each other, and keep hope alive. The ship began to glow with a soft blue light. Jake watched as the metal walls around them became transparent, showing the strange energies swirling outside. The distortion was beautiful, like a dance of light and shadow. 10 seconds to contact, Emma reported. Jake closed his eyes and thought of Helen. He hoped she would understand why he had to go, why exploration was worth the risk. When he opened his eyes, the universe had changed forever. The Phoenix disappeared into the light, leaving only empty space and unanswered questions behind. Helen Morrison stood in her kitchen, looking at the empty chair where Jake used to sit. 20 years had passed since the Phoenix disappeared, but she still set 2 plates for breakfast every morning. The habit had become automatic, like breathing. The morning news played on the small screen mounted on the wall. The reporter was talking about the new Mars colonies and how well they were doing. Helen turned the sound down. She had heard enough about humanity's progress in space. All she wanted was news about one ship that had vanished without a trace. Her doorbell rang, and she opened it to find Tony Hayes standing on her porch. He was Lisa Hayes' younger brother, and like Helen, he had never given up hope. Tony was holding a folder full of papers and had the same determined look he always wore when he visited. Any news? Helen asked, though she already knew the answer. Maybe, Tony said, stepping inside. I've been talking to some people at the Space Command. There are rumors about strange energy readings in the outer systems. Helen poured him coffee and sat down at the kitchen table. Tony had aged in the 20 years since his sister disappeared. His hair was gray now, and lines showed around his eyes. But his voice still carried hope. What kind of energy readings? Helen asked. The same type that were detected right before the Phoenix vanished. Ships on patrol have been reporting brief contacts that appear and disappear before they can be identified. Helen felt her heart speed up. She had heard similar stories before, but they always led to nothing. Still, she could not help but hope. Where are these sightings happening? All over the Outer Rim. Captain Greg Martinez of the patrol ship Ranger filed a report last week. He said his sensors picked up something massive, but when they moved to investigate, it was gone. Helen looked at the folder Tony had brought. It was thick with reports, photographs, and technical data. Tony had been collecting this information for years, building a case that the Phoenix crew might still be alive somewhere. Helen, I think. Something big is happening out there. These aren't random equipment failures or sensor errors. There's a pattern to these sightings. On the other side of the city, Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was sitting in his office aboard the destroyer Falcon. He was reading the same reports that Tony had shown Helen. As Jake Morrison's former student, Alex had been given access to all files related to the Phoenix disappearance. Alex was 35 now, but he still remembered the day he had learned about the Phoenix. He had been a young officer then, eager to follow in his mentor's footsteps. Jake Morrison had taught him everything about deep space exploration, about the dangers and wonders that waited beyond Earth's solar system. His computer chimed with a new message. It was from Admiral Karen Mitchell, the current head of the Space Command. She wanted to see him immediately. Alex walked through the corridors of the space station, past busy officers and crew members. The station was much larger than it had been 20 years ago. Humanity had expanded rapidly into space, building colonies and outposts throughout the solar system. But deep space exploration had become more careful, more cautious after the Phoenix incident. Admiral Mitchell was waiting in her office. She was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and intelligent eyes. She had been a junior officer when the Phoenix disappeared, and the loss had shaped her entire career. Alex, sit down, she said. I want to talk to you about these reports we've been receiving. Alex took a seat across from her desk. The energy readings in the outer systems? Exactly. We've had 12 separate incidents in the past month. All of them show the same characteristics as the Phoenix disappearance. I want you to investigate. What do you think we're dealing with? Admiral Mitchell was quiet for a moment. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's getting bolder. The contacts are lasting longer, and they're happening closer to inhabited systems. Meanwhile, at the Lunar Research Station, Dr. Amy Stone was working late in her laboratory. She was Emma Stone's daughter, and she had dedicated her life to understanding the physics behind her mother's disappearance. The lab was filled with complex equipment and computer screens, showing mathematical equations. Amy had been only 8 years old when the Phoenix vanished, but she remembered her mother clearly. Emma Stone had been a brilliant physicist who loved to explain complicated ideas in simple terms. Amy had followed in her mother's footsteps, studying the same types of space-time distortions that had swallowed the Phoenix. Her assistant, Dr. Ryan Clark, walked into the lab carrying a cup of coffee. Ryan was a young man who had joined Amy's research team 2 years ago. He was brilliant, but sometimes lacked patience with the slow pace of scientific discovery. Any progress on the wormhole equations? Ryan asked. Some. I think I'm starting to understand how the distortion could have formed, but there's still something missing. The energy requirements for a natural wormhole of that size are enormous. I'm not sure the universe could generate that much power on its own. Ryan sat down at a nearby desk. You think it was artificial? I'm beginning to think so. The mathematical patterns in the sensor data suggest an intelligence behind the distortion. Something was controlling it. Amy pulled up a holographic display showing the area where the Phoenix had disappeared. The computer had recreated the space distortion based on the limited sensor data they had collected. It looked like a spiral of twisted space, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. If something did create that wormhole, why? Ryan asked. Amy stared at the display. I don't know. But I think we're about to find out. Back on Earth, the families of the Phoenix crew had formed a support group. They met once a month in a small community center in Houston. Helen Morrison usually led the meetings, but today she was too excited to sit still. I think Tony might be right, she told the group. These new sightings can't be coincidence. Mark Stevens, whose father had been the Phoenix's navigation officer, shook his head. Helen, we've been through this before. Every few years there are reports of strange readings or mysterious contacts. They never lead to anything. This time is different, Helen insisted. The energy signatures are identical to what was detected before the Phoenix disappeared. And they're happening all over the outer systems. Betty Davis, Paul Davis's wife, spoke up. Even if the readings are real, what does that mean? Are we supposed to believe that our families are still alive out there somewhere? Helen looked around the room at the faces of people who had become her closest friends. They had all lost someone on the Phoenix, and they had all struggled with the same questions for 20 years. Were their loved ones dead? Were they trapped somewhere? Or had they simply vanished into the void? I know it sounds impossible, Helen said. But I still believe they're out there. I can feel it. In the Outer Rim territories, Captain Greg Martinez was on patrol duty aboard the Ranger. His ship was smaller than the Phoenix had been, but it was fast and well-equipped for reconnaissance missions. Greg was the experienced captain who had been flying patrols for 15 years. His sensor officer, Lieutenant Nancy Williams, called out from her station. Captain, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. It's big, and it's moving. Greg walked over to look at her display. What kind of movement? It's not following any normal flight path. It appears for a few seconds, then disappears. Then it shows up somewhere else entirely. Distance? About 2 light years away, but Captain, the energy readings are incredible. Whatever it is, it's more powerful than anything we've ever built. Greg felt his stomach tighten. He had heard the stories about the Phoenix, about the strange readings that had been detected right before the ship vanished. Nancy, record everything? I want a complete sensor log of this contact. Yes, sir. But Captain, it's moving toward the inner systems, toward Earth. Greg stared at the display. The unknown contact was definitely heading in the direction of human space. After 20 years of silence, something was finally coming home. Send a message to Admiral Mitchell, he ordered. Tell her we may have found what we've been looking. FOR. As the message traveled through space toward Earth, Helen Morrison was sitting in her kitchen, staring at Jake's empty chair. She did not know that her long wait was almost over. She did not know that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the Phoenix was finally coming home. The alarm bells were screaming across Luna Station when Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner rushed into the control center. The main screen showed something that made his heart stop. A massive object was approaching Earth, and the computers were saying it was impossible. What are we looking at? Alex asked the duty officer, Lieutenant Karen Bell. Sir, our sensors are showing a ship, a big one. But the energy readings don't match anything we've ever seen before. Karen's voice was shaking. And sir, the identification codes are coming back as the Phoenix. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. The Phoenix disappeared 20 years ago. Yes, sir. But the computer is positive. The ship codes match perfectly. Alex stared at the screen. The object approaching Earth was definitely a ship, but it looked nothing like the Phoenix he remembered. The hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, changing shape as he watched. Strange lights danced across its surface in patterns that hurt. His eyes. Get me Admiral Mitchell, Alex ordered. Now. Within minutes, Admiral Mitchell's face appeared on the communication screen. She was in her office on Earth, and Alex could see the worry in her eyes. Alex, please tell me this is some kind of mistake, she said. I wish I could, Admiral. But the identification codes are correct. It's definitely the Phoenix. Or at least, it's what the Phoenix has become. Admiral Mitchell was quiet for a moment. How long until it reaches Earth? At its current speed, about 6 hours. But, Admiral, the way it's moving doesn't make sense. It's not using any kind of propulsion system we can detect. It's just gliding through space like it's swimming. Have you tried to communicate with it? We've been sending standard greeting signals, but no response yet. Admiral Mitchell looked tired. Keep trying. And Alex, I want you to prepare a small fleet. If this isn't really the Phoenix, we need to be ready. On Earth, Helen Morrison was washing dishes when her phone rang. It was Tony Hayes, and his voice was so excited he could barely speak. "Helen, turn on the news, now." Helen dried her hands and turned on the television. The news reporter was talking about an unidentified ship approaching Earth. The images on the screen showed something that looked like a ship made of starlight and shadows. "The object appears to be artificial," the reporter was saying, "but it's unlike anything in our current technology. Officials are asking all citizens to remain calm while they investigate." Helen's phone rang again. This time it was Amy Stone. "Helen, are you watching the news?" Amy asked. "Yes. Do you think it could be them?" "I don't know. But the energy readings are identical to what my mother detected before the Phoenix disappeared. Whatever this is, it's connected to what happened 20 years ago." Helen sat down heavily in her chair. For 20 years, she had hoped for this moment. But now that it was happening, she felt scared. What if the ship contained bad news? What if Jake was gone forever? At Luna Station, Alex was watching the approaching ship through the observation deck windows. It was beautiful in a way that made him nervous. The hull seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like a living thing. Energy flowed across its surface in waves of blue and gold light. "Sir," Lieutenant Bell called out, "we're getting a response to our signals." Alex hurried back to the control center. "Put it on the main screen." The screen flickered, and then a face appeared. Alex nearly fell over. It was Jake Morrison, exactly as he had looked 20 years ago. Not a day older, not a line of age on. His face, "Luna Station, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the Phoenix. Request permission to dock." Alex stared at the screen. Jake's voice was the same, but there was something different about his eyes. They seemed to hold knowledge that hadn't been there before. "Jake?" Alex said, his voice barely a whisper. "Hello, Alex. I know this must be confusing. We have a lot to explain, but you've been gone for 20 years. "How is this possible?" Jake smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Time works differently where we've been. For us, it's only been a few months. But we've learned things that will change everything." Alex felt his hands shaking. "Are you really Jake Morrison?" "Yes, Alex. I'm your old mentor, the one who taught you to fly in formation. I'm the one who told you that space exploration was about more than just discovery. It was about hope." Alex remembered those words. Jake had said them during Alex's first deep space mission when Alex had been scared and homesick. No one else would know that conversation. "Jake, what happened to you out there?" "We were chosen, Alex, chosen to be Earth's guardians. And we've returned just in time because Earth is in danger." The Phoenix moved closer to Luna Station, and Alex could see it more clearly now. The ship was twice the size it had been before, but it moved with impossible grace. As it approached the docking bay, the metal seemed to flow like water, reshaping itself to fit the station's docking port. "All station personnel," Alex announced over the intercom. "Prepare for the arrival of the Phoenix crew. This is not a drill." The docking process was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. The Phoenix didn't just connect to the station. It seemed to merge with it, creating a perfect seal that looked like it had always been there. When the airlock opened, Jake Morrison stepped out. He was wearing the same uniform he had worn 20 years ago, but it seemed to shimmer with its own light. Behind him came Captain Lisa Hayes, looking exactly as she had when she disappeared. "Alex," Jake said, extending his hand, "it's good to see you again." Alex shook his hand, and he felt a strange, tingling sensation. Jake's hand was warm, but there was energy flowing through it like touching a live wire that didn't hurt. "Jake, you look exactly the same. How is that possible?" "Where we've been, time moves differently." "But that's not important right now. We need to talk to Admiral Mitchell immediately." More crew members were coming out of the airlock. Alex recognized Dr. Emma Stone, Chief Engineer Paul Davis, and Communications Officer Brad Cooper. They all looked exactly as they had 20 years ago. "There are people who have been waiting for you," Alex said. "Helen Morrison, Tony Hayes, Amy Stone, they never gave up hope." Jake's expression softened. "Helen, is she well?" "She's been waiting. For you, every day for 20 years. We'll see our families soon." But first, we have to warn Earth about what's coming. Alex led the group to the station's main briefing room. Other officers were gathering, all of them staring at the Phoenix crew with amazement and confusion. Jake, what exactly happened to you out there? Alex asked. Jake looked around the room at the faces of people who had once been his colleagues. We were pulled into another dimension, Alex, a place between realities where we met beings older than our solar system. They've been watching Earth, testing us. Testing us for what? To see if humanity is ready to join the galactic community. But the test revealed something terrible. There's a threat coming, something that destroys entire civilizations. And Earth is next on their list, Captain Hayes spoke up. We've been given technology to defend our world. But we need everyone to understand that nothing will ever be the same again. Alex looked at the Phoenix crew, at these people who had been lost for 20 years but looked like they had left yesterday. What kind of threat are we talking about? Machines. Alex, artificial intelligences that consume entire star systems. They've been asleep for thousands of years, but something has awakened them, and they're heading this way. The room was silent. Alex felt cold despite the warm air of the station. How long do we have? Not long, a few days at most. But we're not helpless. The Phoenix has been transformed, and we can transform Earth's fleet as well. We can give humanity the tools to fight back. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel. Alex, call Admiral Mitchell. Tell her we need to meet with all the world leaders. Humanity is about to face its greatest challenge, and we're the only ones who can help them survive it. Alex activated the communication system. As he waited for the connection to Earth, he looked at his old mentor. Jake Morrison had returned, but he had brought news that would change everything. The age of humanity's innocence was over. The secure briefing room on Luna Station had never held such an important meeting. Admiral Mitchell sat at the head of the table, with Jake Morrison and his crew on one side. Alex Turner and other Earth commanders sat on the other side. The air was thick with tension and disbelief. Jake, I need you to start from the beginning, Admiral Mitchell said. What happened when you disappeared 20 years ago? Jake looked around the room at the faces staring at him. These people deserved the truth, even if it would be hard to believe. We were pulled through what Dr. Stone calls a spatial fold. Think of it like a doorway between dimensions. On the other side was a place that exists between realities. Dr. Emma Stone leaned forward. The physics there are completely different from our universe. Time moves slower, and matter responds to thought as much as to physical laws. Admiral. Mitchell frowned. You're saying you've been in another dimension for 20 years? For you, it was 20 years, Captain Hayes said. For us, it felt like 6 months. Time has no meaning in that place. Alex Turner shook his head. This sounds impossible. I know how it sounds, Jake said. But let me show you something. Jake held up his hand, and slowly it began to glow with soft blue light. The light spread up his arm and across his chest. The other Phoenix crew members did the same thing. Soon, they were all glowing like living stars. This is what happened to us, Jake said. We were changed by the beings who live in that dimension. They call themselves the gatekeepers. Admiral Mitchell stared at the glowing figures. What are these gatekeepers? Dr. Stone answered. They're an ancient race that has existed for millions of years. They watch over the galaxy, protecting younger civilizations from threats they can't handle alone. They've seen countless species rise and fall, Captain Hayes added. Most civilizations destroy themselves before they can reach the stars. But some, like humanity, show promise. Jake's glow faded and he looked normal again. The gatekeepers have been watching Earth for centuries. When we started expanding into space, they decided it was time to test us. Test us how? Alex asked. By taking our most advanced exploration ship and seeing how humanity would react. Would we give up on space travel? Would we become afraid and stay on Earth? Or would we keep pushing forward despite the loss? Admiral Mitchell understood. Our response to losing the Phoenix was the test. Exactly. And humanity passed. You didn't retreat. You built bigger ships, established colonies, and kept exploring. You showed the courage that the gatekeepers were looking for. Chief Engineer Paul Davis spoke up for the first time, but the test revealed something else. The gatekeepers have been monitoring a threat that has been sleeping for thousands of years. Something has awakened it, and it's coming this way. What kind of threat? Admiral Mitchell asked. Jake's expression became grim. They call them the Devourers. They're not alive in the way we understand life. They're machine intelligences that consume everything in their path. Dr. Stone pulled out a small device that projected a holographic image in the center of the table. It showed geometric ships moving through space, leaving nothing but emptiness behind them. The Devourers were created by a civilization that died out millions of years ago, she explained. They were meant to be the ultimate weapons, but they turned on their creators and consumed their entire galaxy. They've been dormant for ages, Captain Hayes continued. But something has triggered their awakening. The gatekeepers believe it was the expansion of younger races into deep space. Alex stared at the hologram. How many are there? Thousands. Of ships, maybe tens of thousands? And each ship is the size of a small moon. Admiral Mitchell felt cold. How can we possibly fight something like that? Jake smiled, and for the first time it was a confident smile. The gatekeepers didn't just test us. They prepared us. The Phoenix has been transformed into something new, something that can fight the Devourers. Paul Davis stood up. Admiral, would you like to see what the Phoenix can do now? Minutes later, the group was standing in the observation deck, looking out at the Phoenix. Jake spoke into a small communicator, and the ship began to change. The hull flowed like liquid, reshaping itself into a completely different configuration. Weapons that looked like they were made of pure energy appeared along its sides. The ship grew larger, then smaller, then split into multiple copies of itself. How is this possible? Alex whispered. The ship is no longer just metal and circuits, Dr. Stone explained. It's been infused with gatekeeper technology. It responds to our thoughts and emotions. It can repair itself, reshape itself, and even duplicate itself. The multiple Phoenix ships merged back into one, and it returned to its original shape. But the ship is just the beginning, Jake said. The real power is in what we've learned. The gatekeepers taught us to manipulate space and time itself. Captain Hayes held out her hand, and space around it began to bend. The stars visible through the window seemed to curve around her fingers. We can fold space to travel instantly across vast distances. We can slow down time to give ourselves more opportunities to think and react. And we can share these abilities with other humans. Admiral. Mitchell was struggling to understand. You're saying you can teach these powers to our crews? Not exactly teach, Jake said, but we can share them. When the Phoenix connects with other ships, it can transform them as well. We can turn Earth's entire fleet into something the Devourers have never faced before. Alex looked at his old mentor. Jake, this is incredible. But why didn't the gatekeepers just fight the Devourers themselves? Jake was quiet for a moment. Because they've learned that direct intervention usually fails. Civilizations that are saved by others never learn to save themselves. They become dependent, weak. The gatekeepers believe that each species must find its own strength. So they gave us the tools, but we have to use them ourselves, Admiral Mitchell said. Exactly. And there's something else. Something that makes humanity special. Dr. Stone activated her device again. This time it showed images of different alien civilizations. The gatekeepers have tested many species over the millennia. Most of them failed in one way or another. They were either too aggressive, too peaceful, too rigid in their thinking, or too chaotic. But humans are different, Captain Hayes said. We have a quality that the gatekeepers find fascinating. We call it adaptability, but it's more than that. Jake nodded. When faced with impossible situations, humans don't just adapt. We innovate. We find solutions that no one else would think of. We turn weaknesses into strengths. Paul Davis grinned. The gatekeepers have never seen anything like human creativity. They've given us their technology, but they know we'll use it in ways they never imagined. Admiral Mitchell stood up. When will the Devourers arrive? 3 days, Jake said. Maybe less. They're moving faster than the gatekeepers expected. What do we need to do? First, we need to gather Earth's fleet. Every ship that can be spared. Then we need to connect them to the Phoenix and begin the transformation process. Alex looked worried. Will our crews be able to handle these new abilities? Jake put his hand on Alex's shoulder. You'll be surprised what humans can handle when their survival depends on it. And Alex, I want you to command one of the transformed ships. Me? But I don't know anything about this gatekeeper technology. You don't need to know how it works. You just need to trust it and trust yourself. The technology responds to human instincts and emotions. Your courage and creativity are more important than technical knowledge. Admiral Mitchell activated her communicator. This is Admiral Mitchell to all Earth command vessels. Code Red Alert. All ships return to Earth space immediately. This is not a drill. As the orders went out across the solar system, Jake looked. Through the window at Earth, the blue planet hung peacefully in space, unaware that its greatest test was only days away. Admiral, Jake said, you should know that even with our new abilities, this battle won't be easy. The Devourers have conquered thousands of civilizations. They adapt quickly to new threats. But they've never faced humans before, Admiral Mitchell replied. Jake smiled. No, they haven't. And that might be exactly the advantage we need. The alarm bells were screaming across Earth when the first Devourer ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They came out of nowhere, massive geometric shapes that blocked out the stars behind them. Each ship was the size of a small moon, and there were hundreds of them. Admiral Mitchell stood in the command center on Earth, watching the enemy fleet approach. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. Around her, officers worked frantically to coordinate humanity's defense. How long until they reach Earth? She asked. At their current speed, 6 hours, reported Captain Martinez, who had been brought in from patrol duty. Admiral, our sensors are showing incredible energy levels from those ships. They're more powerful than anything we've ever seen. Above Earth, the human fleet was gathering. Every military ship that could fly had been called back. Destroyers, cruisers, and patrol vessels formed defensive lines around the planet. But compared to the approaching Devourer fleet, they looked like toys. The Phoenix hung in space near the center of the human formation. Jake Morrison stood on its bridge, no longer looking like the man who had disappeared 20 years ago. His body glowed with soft energy, and his eyes held knowledge of things beyond human understanding. Alex, are you ready? Jake spoke into his communicator. Alex Turner's voice came back from the destroyer Falcon. As ready as I can be. But Jake, I'm still not sure how this transformation process works. Don't think about it too much. When the Phoenix connects with your ship, just let it happen. Trust your instincts. Captain Hayes was standing next to Jake. Like him, she had been changed by their time with the gatekeepers. Beginning transformation. Sequence, she announced. The Phoenix began to glow brighter. Energy flowed from its hull in streams of blue and gold light. The streams reached out like living things. Touching the nearest human ships aboard the Falcon, Alex felt his ship begin to change. The metal walls around him became warm and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. His control panels transformed, becoming smoother and more responsive. When he placed his hands on the controls, they felt alive under his touch. Alex, how do you feel? Jake asked. Alex looked around his bridge. Everything was different, but somehow familiar. It's strange. The ship feels like part of me now. Like I can control it just by thinking. That's exactly right. The ship will respond to your thoughts and emotions. Don't fight it. Work with it. The transformation spread from ship to ship. Captain Martinez watched his patrol vessel Ranger change around him. The hull became flexible and responsive. Weapons appeared that he had never seen before, made of pure energy rather than metal. Dr. Amy Stone was aboard the research vessel Discovery when the change reached her ship. As the daughter of Emma Stone, she had been given a place in the fleet despite being a scientist rather than a soldier. She felt the ship's systems connect with her mind, and suddenly she understood things about space and time that had taken her mother years to learn. The Devourer fleet was getting closer. Their ships moved in perfect formation like a swarm of mechanical insects. They had no visible weapons, but energy readings showed they were incredibly dangerous. "All ships, this is Admiral Mitchell," came the voice over the communication system. "The enemy will reach firing range in 1 hour. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and fight for Earth." Helen Morrison was watching the battle preparations from her home in Houston. The news coverage showed the human fleet preparing to fight, but the enemy ships looked impossibly large and powerful. She clutched a photograph of Jake, praying that somehow he would come home again. Helen, Tony Hayes had come to watch with her. "Whatever happens, they gave us a chance. Jake and the others, they came back to save us." In space, the first contact was about to begin. The Devourer ships had reached the outer edge of the solar system. They moved with mechanical precision, their dark hulls absorbing light like black holes. Jake Morrison felt the familiar calm that came before battle. "All ships, this is the Phoenix. Remember, these enemies are machines. They think in patterns. We need to be unpredictable." The Devourers fired first. Beams of pure destruction lanced out from their ships, targeting the human fleet. But the transformed human vessels were no longer easy targets. They moved like living things, bending and flowing through space to avoid the attacks. Alex guided the Falcon through a series of impossible maneuvers. His ship folded space around itself, appearing in multiple places at once. When he fired back, his weapons didn't just hit the enemy ships. They seemed to unravel them at the fundamental level. "Jake, this is incredible," Alex called out. "The ship is doing things I never dreamed possible." "That's human creativity working with gatekeeper technology," Jake replied. "You're not just using their tools, you're improving them." Captain Martinez found that his ship could split into smaller copies of itself. Each copy fought independently, but they all shared his thoughts and reactions. The Devourers had never faced an enemy that could multiply itself during battle. Dr. Amy Stone discovered that her research vessel could bend time around enemy ships, slowing them down while the rest of the human fleet moved at normal speed. It was a tactic no military manual had ever described because it should have been impossible. The battle raged across the solar system. The Devourer ships were powerful, but they were confused by human tactics. They had been built to fight conventional enemies, not ships that could reshape themselves and bend the laws of physics. "The enemy is adapting," Captain Hayes reported from the Phoenix. "Their ships are learning from our attacks." Jake watched the Devourer formation change. The machine intelligence was analyzing human tactics and developing counters. "Then we need to adapt faster than they can." The Phoenix began to change again, but this time it was different. Instead of just transforming itself, it seemed to merge with the other human ships. The entire fleet became connected, sharing thoughts and reactions. Instantly, Alex felt his mind connect with hundreds of other human pilots. He could sense their fear, their determination, and their hope. More importantly, he could feel their creativity. Ideas flowed between the ships faster than any computer could process. The human fleet began to fight as a single organism. Ships would sacrifice themselves to protect others, knowing that their crew's consciousness would live on in the connected network. Weapons that had never existed before appeared as human. Imagination combined with gatekeeper technology. Dr. Amy Stone created a weapon that turned the enemy's own energy against them. Captain Martinez developed tactics that used the gravitational fields of planets as shields. Alex Turner learned to fold his ship through dimensions, striking enemies from directions that didn't exist in normal space. The Devourers tried to adapt, but human creativity was faster than machine learning. Every time they developed a counter to one tactic, humans would invent 3 new ones. "Jake," Admiral Mitchell called from Earth, "the enemy fleet is retreating." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Devourer ships were indeed pulling back, but he knew it wasn't over. They're not retreating, they're regrouping. This was just their first probe. Will they come back? Yes, but not here. They've learned that humanity is too dangerous to attack directly. They'll look for easier targets. Alex felt the connection between the ships beginning to fade as the immediate danger passed. Jake, what happens now? Now we become what the gatekeepers always intended us to be. Guardians of the galaxy. Protectors of civilizations that can't protect themselves. The Phoenix began to glow again, but this time the light was different. It was warm and welcoming rather than fierce and warlike. The transformation isn't complete, Jake explained. We've learned to fight, but now we need to learn to build, to explore, to help other species find their own strength. Admiral Mitchell's voice came over the communication system. All ships return to Earth. We have a lot to discuss. As the human fleet turned toward home, Helen Morrison stood in her backyard looking up at the stars. She couldn't see the ships, but she could feel that something had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they were no longer helpless. Jake Morrison would come home soon, but he would bring with him the responsibility of protecting not just Earth, but all the civilizations that would follow. The age of humanity's expansion into the cosmos had truly begun.